Hey everyone, it's Types, and today I'm going to be talking about the Paldea Evolved expansion, which came out exactly a year ago, and it's been pretty interesting, and it's had some ups and downs, and let's just talk about it, right? So let's start with, the starters, because they all got EXs. They're all stage 2s, of course, the final evolutions of the stars, I should say. And they're pretty interesting, but not super good, as is honestly pretty usual for starters. But we got Meowscarada EX, which is the best of the three with Bouquet Magic, which says you can discard a basic grass from your hand to put 3 damage counters on one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, and you have Scratching Nails, which does 100 or 220 for 2 if your opponent's active has damage counters on it. This Pokemon has seen some play. It's seen play with Radiant Alakazam, Double Turbo Energy, and a few other cards to kind of get it going. It's a little bit awkward as it is a stage 2, but with Charizard EX, which is, well, the Darkness Charizard EX, not the Fire one, being really good, Meowscarada EX actually hits it for weakness, which is pretty interesting. There's a lot of kind of weird things going on with the weakness triangles and stuff right now with Charizard EX specifically being Darkness Pokemon that uses Fire Energy, meaning that it hits Meowscarada for weakness if you're using the attackers of the same type as the energy, but then Meowscarada hits the Charizard for weakness. It's kind of weird, but anyway, it's seen play because of Charizard and seen play because it's kind of interesting. Skulldare GX, really solid damage output. It does 270 for 2 fire, but 10 less for each damage counter on this Pokemon. This set there was actually a partner, I believe, intended for it, which was Oricorio, which will heal you, which is nice, but it's not that good. I don't think this card's really seen too much play. And lastly, we got Quaquaval EX. I played this. It's a bit of I describe it as like a YouTube deck where there's some like videos on it that are kind of funny, but fundamentally the decks and the card itself is just not that good. Not terrible, but you can use double turbo, or sorry, you can use Neo Upper, which is 2 energies. You can use hit and run style stuff, but it's not that good. The other EXs that were in the set, the ones to focus on, were the, I believe, Treasures of Ruin. That might not be the right name. I honestly don't remember. But they have Wuchen EX, Chimpao EX, Chiyu EX, and the last, Tinglu EX. There we go. Tinglu EX was one of the best ones right when it came out with its ability Cursed Land. As long as it's in the active, your opponent's Pokemon in play have no, that have damage counters on them have no abilities except for Pokemon EX, and your attack here is okay. But the big issue is that as time went on, more Pokemon EX were printed. So when this first came out, it was pretty good as an ability lock, just a lot of the Pokemon in the game. But now there's a good chunk that it doesn't stop. So that was a big issue for this deck. And I mean, it's just not that good of a card. It's one that has seen some play lately, but not too much. And so I don't know, it just really fell off, right? So you got Chimpao EX and Tinglu EXs were really the big 2 decks from the set. Tinglu EX, amusingly, was kind of really broken in Pokemon TCG Live. It just completely soft locked the game, I believe, when paired with the card Penny, and there might have been some other ways, but Tinglu EX, is a really solid card that is kind of designed in a weird way where it just doesn't counter cards that are going to get printed in the future very, very blatantly. Because this was only the second set of EXs, by the way. It was the second Scarlet and Violet set, or at least main set. But it was not terrible. And then Chimpao EX paired with Baxcalibur. Let's pull that up. Baxcalibur just accelerates a bunch of water energy from hand into play and was, in my opinion, really the Pokemon that kind of revitalized Stage 2 Pokemon. We had Gardevoir EX the set before, and it was certainly not a bad card. It was actually a very good card, probably better than Excalibur, but also it didn't exactly play like a normal Stage 2 because you had a Stage 2 attacker that was in the same evolution line and a good Stage 1, so you wouldn't need to rely on Rare Candy as much. But Excalibur, it's just a straight up really good Stage 2 with Chimpao EX being the attacker. You accelerate energy to it, you discard the energy, you just one-shot things. It's kind of like, I mean, we've seen a lot of decks where we just one-shot things by getting a lot of energy in play. Chimpao EX is just another one of those. Next, we come to Wuchen EX. This is probably the worst of the 4. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about this card. It has like a snipe attack that's actually pretty good, but grass is just not very good. It has not great acceleration, and it's just kind of bad. So Wuchen EX, unfortunately, is also kind of bad. Then we come to Chiyu EX, which is the last of the 4, and arguably the best, though I don't think so. It's probably the 3rd best in my opinion. But you have Flame Surge, which is an attack that isn't terrible, but the big thing to focus on is Jealousy Singe for 1 fire. You discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. Of course, this is, well, a discarding attack, so a mill-based attack. that you can eventually deck your opponent out of cards. And this is really nice in control decks because it's only one energy attachment, and also fire energies are pretty easy to put into decks because, or nice to put into control decks because Radiant Charizard is a nice option. Although with the new expansion, Twilight Masquerade, the new Blood Moon Ursa Luna EX actually makes this card worse because you're less likely to play Radiant Charizard because they fulfill similar roles. But it's still a really solid card, and you still can play Radiant Charizard and get a lot of value out of it in control. So, overall, those three of the four are really solid. Wuchen EX isn't even that bad. Speaking of bad grass EXs, that aren't terrible but not great, Fortress EX is really weird. I've talked about this a lot, especially on the podcast with Uncommon Fossil, but it knocks itself out, then accelerates a bunch of grass energy. Grass Pokemon aren't that good, but the big issue is it knocks itself out. It's a two prizer, so you're giving up two prizes to use this. That's really bad. So this card just isn't good. It's funny. It can be powerful in certain scenarios, but for the most part, just not good. But that's a card I really had to mention. Outside of that, in terms of the EXs, we did see Belly Bolt EX. This paralyzes and it does some stuff, but whatever. Slowking EX is a Terra EX. It's yes, I didn't say Fortress EX is also a Terra EX. Terra EXs were immune to bench damage, but in the next main expansion, Terra EXs were introduced that had different types, so right now that wasn't a big deal. Tedena EX also, this one I think has seen maybe a little playing Gardevoir, but it's pretty rare. But it is, I guess, one of the best Terra EXs in the set, which isn't saying much. You had Lycanroc EX, a kind of generic fighting stage 1 EX. We also had Paldea and Cloudzer EX. This one's pretty interesting. If there's a stadium play, you can make your opponent's active poison. This is a card I like. I haven't played much, but it's a fun card. But again, not great. And Capraja EX. This is a fun metal EX that I played some. It's okay, but not anything particularly special. Then we come to the two EXs that are really special. First of all, Noivern EX. It's been played in a few different decks. Oh wow, this is a much wider deck variety than I was expecting. The big thing is Regidrago V-Star, which can copy this for a different energy cost. It's actually more expensive, but it's a different deck. And you have Dominating Echo, stopping special energy in stadiums from being played next turn. Pretty good, especially expanded, but this is a standard focus video. And Covert Flight, Walling Basics, which is nice. And so Walling Basics, obviously, if you're up against an all basic deck, you essentially just win the game, which is really good. And you can use it for a double turbo energy. You will be doing less damage, which is a bit of an issue, but it's not that bad. And then Dominating Echo again steps special energy, which is nice, but Lugia V-Star can still accelerate it. And besides that, you can also go ahead and stop stadiums from being played, which is actually nice because you can play a stadium and your opponent can't play a counter stadium. They can Lost Vacuum though, or I believe that Pumpkaboo is still in format, but not played as much. But your opponent could do that as well. The best EX, though, from the set has to be Squawkabilly EX. This is really good. Its ability to squawk and seize once during your first turn, you can discard your hand and draw 6 cards. You can't use more than one of this ability during your turn or during the game, assuming live is not glitching, which it did a little. And you also have Motivate, which does a little bit of damage and accelerates energy, which is actually not that bad, but not great, especially with your low HP. But this card is, in my opinion, I described as a staple. I don't know. It's not played in every deck, but in turbo decks, it's completely defining the meta. It's really great. You can use Nest Ball as well to get it, and it's just a really powerful card and a card that I just love a lot because it's a turbo card, right? It's a really fun card to help you set up as well, and is seeing play with Roaring Moon, Raging Bolt, but also it's seeing play with, Raging Bolt, Ogerpon, seeing play in Roaring Moon, seeing play in Miraidon, and a bunch of other just turbo decks, although those are the main ones. But overall, just a really powerful card. Outside of that, we had some other Pokemon. We had the Flamigo and the Murkrow. Where's Murkrow? Murkrow and the Watchville, which had the United Wings attack. 20 for each of your Pokemon that discard power with the attack United Wings, so it kind of ramps up if you know Mad Party or Night March. And it's the same thing essentially, but it's a little bit different, and I'll probably talk about it more later because there's actually a 4th United Wings Pokemon being printed in a Dartrix from the next set, I believe the mini set Shrouded Fable or Night Wanderer, which are kind of the same set, and that's a really cool deck, but It wasn't the best. I mean, you have low HP and you take a while to get set up. Squawkable EX was nice for that though. And then we come to a few more cards. Let's talk about supporters, or let's talk about trainers now. Boss's Orders came out in this set initially, I believe, right? Yeah, so it was. I guess it's been like printed. Okay, so it didn't rotate. I was a little confused about what like times Boss's Orders was printed. But Boss's Orders is a really great supporter card. You could honestly make a very fair argument that's the best card in the game right now. I think it's probably not, but it's pretty close. And it just says switch one of your opponent's bench to their active, and that's really good. Bench Pokemon to their active Pokemon, and yeah, it's great. It allows you to trap Pokemon with control-based decks. It allows you to take knockouts. I mean, it's in like a lot of decks. Like, this is getting very slow, but it's in a lot of decks as you can see here because it lets you target your opponent's bench with any deck, and it can allow you to do just so much stuff. Of course, you'd like to be able to draw cards with a supporter, but there are times when this is really important. But as you can see, it's seen a lot of play. It's also been in format for since the beginning of Sword and Shield, and it will be presumably a staple in the game forever. Just as long as the game continues, and it's a pretty well balanced card, but still really powerful. It's not the only card that does this effect. We have Counter Catcher, Pokemon Catcher, and Prime Catcher, which are all okay, but all have their downsides. Prime Catcher is really good, but also it's an A spec, so it's a little different. We also had some other trainers. We had Choice Belt, bizarrely in the set. It's a card that does more damage to Pokemon V, except in a year from now, or a little under, all the Pokemon V will rotate, and this card will not rotate. So that's weird. It won't do anything. It literally will have no effect other than just being a tool. We have Calamitous Wasteland, which increases retreat cost for control decks, which is nice. And then we also had Iono. This supporter, you could also make an argument, is the best card in the game. And I'm not sure. I might say it's the best card in the game. But it says each player shuffles their hand and puts it on the bottom of their deck. And if either player puts cards on the bottom of their deck in this way, they draw a card for each of their remaining prizes. This is really, really good. It's essentially shuffle draw 6, so great early game draw. And also it's great late game disruption. In terms of late game draw, it's not very good usually, except in control. And then in terms of early game disruption, it's not that good because your opponent will be getting 6 cards, but it's still not bad in certain scenarios, especially against like Greninja EX or any other Pokemon that searches for cards and then that you aren't playing on your turn. So, Iono is a really, really powerful card, and it's arguably the best supporter in the game. It's probably Iono or Boss's Orders. And yeah, also Iono is a new supporter, so Boss's Orders is, it wasn't a new supporter with this set, but it was reprinted. We also had Giacomo, which I don't think is the right way to pronounce it, but I honestly don't remember. And so you can discard special energies, some more control stuff. We had Superior Energy Retrieval making its return, as well as Super Rod. Super Rod and Superior Energy Retrieval are two great recovery item cards. They're both staples in many decks. Super Rod is really a staple. I would not say this is the best card in the format. I'm there are probably a few people who would. It's important, but yeah, it's just a nice card. It recovers Pokemon and energies. Then Superior Energy Retrieval just gets a lot of energies from your discard into your hand, and it's also useful for discarding other cards, which can be important. And then we also have Jet Energy as a switching energy, Luminous Energy, which is an energy that lets you. It's like an energy of every type, but it only works if it's the only special energy, which is a bit of an issue in certain scenarios. It's not like super broken, but it's not bad. Then reversal energy, it's just super good. If you're down on prizes and it's attached to an evolution single prizer, it's 3 of any energy, which is insane. But in any other scenario, it's just one colorless. So it's probably it's one of the most game defining cards right now, but it doesn't see a ton of play, and that's because Pokemon needs to very actively design their cards with this card in mind, because if they design a card that just is too good with this, then the game's going to be completely broken open. Right now, they've just done a really good job of avoiding that because there's not expanded. There's this deck in expanded that's like really not fun to play against. It's like it's if you've seen this deck, you know what it is. But yeah, there's this thing. Well, in standard, it's pretty balanced. And Therapeutic Energy has surprisingly seen a lot of play. It's not a very good card, to be honest, but it's seen a good chunk in just Lugia to be paired with Snorlax, because it's okay. We also, excuse me, we also got Great Ball. I honestly didn't even remember we got in this set, but it sees play. It's a pseudo staple. And then we also have Clavel. We have Dendra, Faulkner, and Grusha and Seguero, which are all supporters. I honestly don't remember what all of them do, specifically Seguero. Oh, this is the healing one, but they're all okay, I guess. And then we also had Bravery Charm, which is a really great tool, giving you 50 more HP to your basics. And then we also had the Stadium Art Zone. This is arguably the best stadium in the game right now. Obviously, a stadium, it helps both players. So you could say being good, it's like so good that it helps your opponent out very consistently as well. So there are reasons not to play it. But it has good value in every deck because it just lets you search for a basic non-rule box Pokemon and put it onto your bench, which is really good for just almost any deck. There are certain decks. I mentioned Lugia Vista earlier, and it's not going to be that good in that deck, but um, yeah, it's good in a lot of decks. A lot of decks. I mean, every deck plays Pokemon, so it's usually good unless you're only running multi prizes, which is rare. Three of the cards I want to mention that I think are cool that I like. Pelipper is a pretty interesting Pokemon that says you say when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you either put a supporter from your discard into your hand or search your deck for a supporter, reveal it, and put it into your hand. This is pretty interesting because it allows you to just get a supporter and reuse the supporter. It's a card I have not played. However, I will say I think there's a solid chance that this card is going to see play in the future. Obviously, it's an on-play ability, and that means that it's staying in play. It's not going to leave play. And then you're going to have a full bench, and then you're going to be like, oh, I've got all these Pelipers in play, and now I can't play my other Pokemon. However, there is a stadium in the future that will be increasing your bench, and I think Pelipper will be a nice little addition. There is a different card called Noctowl, which is similar, but in some ways better. It's more aggressive, but doesn't recover. And so I don't know. I don't know what we'll see with Pelipper, but I think it's a pretty cool card. And then we also got the Dunsparce. This one is a really weird card, but it's a funny one. But we don't really need to talk about it. Then we also got ourselves a Garganackle. I think this was the first Garganackle. Is it good? No, but it's a card. Yeah, I like Garganackle. And then we got Tinkaton. Discard a card from your hand, draw three. Actually, not terrible. The Tinkaton EX deck is an interesting deck, which does more for each card in your hand, so you can just do some fun stuff there. There's a Gothitelle that was control-based. Rabska, weird card. Oh, we had Mimikyu. I forgot Mimikyu was in the set. Then we also had Spiritomb. And we had a few more cards that are worth mentioning, but Mimikyu is immune to damage from Pokemon EX and Pokemon V, and it has a usable attack. And so this just auto wins certain games. And in games it doesn't auto win, it usually provides some value as well, and it's just a bit of an annoying card for your opponent to deal with. It's really good, and it's seen a lot of play recently. I mean, yeah, it's just good. And in any deck you play Psychic Energy, I'd recommend putting a copy in. Next, Spiritomb says basic Pokemon V and play have no abilities. This card also broke the game. I think you just, in live, I said with Penny and Tingloo EX, you'd soft lock the game, but Spiritomb, you just attach energy and attack and soft lock the game. But, anyways, that's in live. But normally, you just get to wall, or not wall, but stop basic abilities, and that's really basic Pokemon V abilities, which is really annoying for certain Pokemon. There aren't too many of them. There's like Rotom V and Lumineon V. And there's also Genesect V, but still it's a really, really solid card that's a little bit annoying to have to deal with. And again, like Choice Bell, when Pokemon V rotate, this card will still be in the game, and it's going to be probably essentially just useless. We also had Luxray, which did with the reversal energy 180, and you could play it down if you're just down on prizes, which is kind of weird, but it's a card that's seen a lot of play in a lot of different decks that play reversal energy. And then we also see and Jumpluff was kind of a fun little line as well. It was like immune half the time. I saw this deck on like for like a day or two. It was like all over the ladder, and it was kind of annoying. But overall, the set was all right. It had some gems that were like really solid. If you look at a card like Luxray and Mimikyu, they're not like super game defining, but they are really solid cards and really powerful. And you can say that about really just a lot of the cards from the set. There was also a Veluza, fun little card. If you had no cards in hand, it was 120 for free. Or sorry, 120 for one water, which is kind of fun. But overall, just a really fun set. They had some cool cards, but not the strongest set either. We certainly only saw one, I think, deck that was really competing for the best deck, which would be Chimpow EX. But Squawkabilly EX also has been a big part in other decks. But anyway, I wanted to just talk about the set because it's been a year, and taking a look back, it's pretty interesting. But I hope you enjoyed. Consider liking and subscribing if you did. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.